RotoGrinders! Welcome to DFS pregame show here on RotoGrinders. I'm Jordan Cooper, a.k.a. Blender Ed, Blender HD, if you want to follow me on Twitter. And it's Tuesday, August 8th. And hit those thumbs ups. We're slacking on the thumbs recently, right? I've been looking later. It's like, what, 15, 20 thumbs? I know I have 10 fingers. I know I only have 2 thumbs here, but you must have a thumb at home. So hit that like button. Hit the subscribe button if you're new here. Hit the notification bell to know when we go live, the YouTube chat, early birds, the regulars. The regulars are here. DFIC, what does? Nerdy Tanner, Jay Simmons. Good morning. Good morning. It's Tuesday. Still MLB. Did you play Spencer Strider yesterday? Sorry. I did. I was fine. Under 9.5 strikeouts. I was pretty good there. So didn't necessarily. I was rooting for his demise. A lot of people in DFS not necessarily were. So I had a decent day in props yesterday. Not so much in DFS, but props, sure. Because there's edges everywhere. I just want to make it clear. Like I think so many people get caught up in edge chasing. Is that a better way? Is that a sexual thing? I have no idea. Edge chasing? Could that be one? I don't know. And that their head goes in like 18 different directions. Oh, I got props here. I got an underdog. I got prize picks, and I got there's the alt lines in NFL preseason, NFL preseason showdown, and then it's like oh well, PGA the off peak PGA season is okay. There's an edge there when like Patton Kazire is 11K or something like that, and you're like, what is going on in this world? And people look around, NFL's going on, and it's like, oh, MLB during September with all the call-ups. Oh, there's a lot of edge there. WNBA. Oh, projections are off there. There's not information arbitrage. College football, following the news and everything. Like, people are just like, there's edges everywhere. You don't have to do them all. Best ball. There's one, right? Seems like I need to get into best ball. It's like, oh, do I do best ball on Underdog, on Draftkings, on Drafters? And then there's multiple sites. And then you have to track stuff. And like, dude, you don't have to do everything. There are edges everywhere. Just because someone doesn't do something doesn't mean there's no edge there, right? And that's why I wanted to bring up a question posed by Two Gun on Twitter, and I want to bring this up as I try to promote this show as a thought process show, right? I'm not talking here every day about formulas and stuff. Oh, this is how you calculate and blah blah blah. And here's the distributive analysis and regression to the whatever. I'm just making up sentences that I could, because that goes over the head. It's like you could get directionally to the same point by just thinking through, having a broad knowledge of some basic statistical concepts, and then just walking through and getting to certain answers and weighing certain variables, problem solving to some degree, where you're not just like, oh, what are the numbers? How do I plug it in? What's the answer? Because a lot of times there isn't an answer. There isn't a concrete answer. Nick even says in the chat, at this point, almost 99% of my volume is on props now. Playing so low in DFS has been a great mental health exercise also. Yeah, dude, you don't have to play DFS. You don't have to play every slate, right? Find your edges where you can. And a lot of times props is, you don't have to really do any kind of game theory-ish type of what are other people going to do. The market's the market. Just get there early and get the best number and have some amount of the bottom-up projections of some type. And then you're fairly competitive at worst. But I like on this show promoting problem solving. We're being presented with what looks like an answer and then being able to pick apart and go, well, is this exactly true? And is this exactly true? Does this work exactly the way that it should? So I wanted to bring up two examples. I'll get to the Two Gun tweet in a second. But like I gave I gave an explanation to someone in our Discord. Feel free to sign up, rotogrinders.com/Discord in the regular MLB channel, about like MLB has a lot of variance, right? MLB has a crap ton of variance, right? And the outcomes aren't normally distributed. So, I mean, it can be all over the place. But so many people get, and you see this in all sports, so many people vastly overestimate like the difference between like the good plays and the bad plays or whatever, a good play and a mediocre play, if you want to call them plays. So I gave the example, and just so someone could visualize, someone without a statistical background could just like visualize it. I told them they could go to random.org. Okay? So let's say that this top stack or whatever like that, like put in like 25 to 85 or something like that, right? Into the random number generator. 25 to 85. And then generate like 10 different numbers or whatever, a certain amount, right? Well, I'll put them down on this little spreadsheet, right? So put 25 to 85, and that represents like the top stack of the day. That's the range of outcomes, 25 to 85, right? So we go 74. So we're going to put down 74, right? And then we're going to go 25 to 85, 68, 25 to 85, 26. Okay, we put 26. Right, let's do two at a time. 61, 41. 61, 41. Let's do a couple more. Just to highlight how small the differences are. 40, 61 again. 40, 61. Do three more, so we get up to 10. 48, 47, 71. 48, 48, 47, 71. Okay? And then I said the worst stack or whatever, or bad stack, 15 to 75. That's the range. Like it's 10 off. And now generate 10 numbers. So we'll do that. 62, 32, 25. 62, 32, 25. 62, 32, 25. 49, 69, 54. 49, 69, 54. Right? It doesn't look all that different, right? 60, 37. 60, 37, and two more. 51, 40. 51, 40. Now, does the top line look that much different than the second line? I mean, you get some 74, you get a little bit higher. But if you counted the wins, right? So that's the best stack, and versus the worst stack. So it'd be 1-0, 2-0, 3-0, 4-0, 4-1, 4-2, 5-2, 6-2, 6-3, 7-3. And some of these are very close. We line them up. So like 70-30, 70% of the time, the top stack beats the end just 10. Obviously, it's a very small sample size. But I wanted them to do that in a sense of like just seeing the output and saying, would you be able to tell that if we kept on going and we randomized like all the order or stuff, like would you be able to even with your naked eye necessarily be able to tell the difference between the output of the higher range, 25 to 85 versus 15 to 75 or whatever it was? Would you even be able to tell? Now, you may get it right like 70% of the time or something like that, but a lot of times you're not going to be able to. So that's how the range is. That's how the difference between the best and the worst is. So imagine the best and like the second. Imagine doing 15 to 75 versus 16 to 76. Like, I'd rather have 16 to 76 as my range than 15 to 75. But how much better is the 16 to 76? You'll barely be able to tell the difference in a very small sample size. Even in a large sample size, you probably could barely tell the difference. So just to convey to this person, like, how small the differences really are. And that's why in DFS, playing against, average Joes or whatever, a lot of times the highest projected players go X% owned, and like the tier underneath them go dramatically too low in comparison. Because one guy is the best wide receiver player. Oh, he's 7K and he projects for 20.8. And this guy is 7,100 and he projects for 18.6. It's like, obviously the first guy will be 24% owned. And the second guy will be 8% owned. It's like, that's the inefficiencies in DFS, right? Because, yeah, one has a higher expectation than the other. But to the extent that one should be 3 times more owned, I mean, that's the game that you play in DFS. But when people take a look at data and they take a look at, sim output or something, and they go, well, this stack has a 13% chance, and this stack has a 10% chance, and this stack has a 7% chance. They just automatically got to play the top stack. This was like the second highest stack, and it turns out the 13th highest stack was the winner. What the hell? All these numbers are wrong. It's like, no, you're just looking at them wrong. It has a lower probability, but that's the difference between 15 to 75 versus 18 to 78. Like, that's the difference. That's it. That's all it is. And I say this as an example. Although, I don't know if the guys in the chat could point out, why is this slightly wrong? Like, if you were a math person, you'd look at this example and go, the concept you're trying to show is spot on, but the output is not necessarily correct to the perfect degree. Why would that be? This is the thought process type of show of, okay, this sounds in theory, right? You'd look and go, yeah, the top stack is 25 to 85, worst stack is 15 to 75. So going into the random number generator and going, give me a random number between 15 and 75 or a random number between 25 and 85, and that could properly represent the outcomes of those ranges for an MLB stack or something like that. Why is that flawed? Although the concept is accurate. The concept is, what I'm trying to convey is true. The example is flawed. And why would that be? If you want to post it in the YouTube chat or give me a thummy thumb while you're at it, I'll always take those thummy thumbs. The main reason why this is technically not a perfect example. Defix says can only use 5 or 9 for each stack. Now, I'm not even talking about, like, it could be anything. So we're not even talking about stat. We're talking a player. There we go. Spastic toasters. Yeah, I wouldn't name it that. Not each outcome is equally weighted. That's correct. When we go into a random number generator and I say 15 to 75, the distribution of outcomes is linear. Meaning the chance of pulling a 75 or a 15 are equal. The chance of putting a 48 or a 75 are equal. This result set, essentially we're telling the random number generator, I want a result out of the set of 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, all the way to 75. I want it just random. There's one of each, right? And I want one. Draw one at random. The thing is that distributions in DFS are not linear. And maybe could some be? I guess maybe. So, for instance, when we have 25 to 85, right? There's 60 in between. Let's say it's a normal distribution of some type, close. That middle is going to be like 55. But there are going to be a lot more 55s than there are 25s. There's going to be a lot more 54s than there are 26s. There's going to be a lot more 53s than there are 27s. You see? Because the distribution goes like this. So when you say 25 to 85, like, it's going to be a lot more around 55s to choose from. When you say 15 to 75, and the mid zone is like 45, there's going to be a lot more 45s. A lot more 45s to choose from here versus the amount of 45s there are from the other set. Because the distribution is more normal. If you want to call it normal, that's fine. So a random number generator doesn't know that. And you would have to tell it, I want to set 15, 16, 16, 17, 17, 17, 18, 18, 18, 18, 19, 19, 19, 19, 19, 20. Like you're adding on till you get to the middle and then you come all the way down. So you're not going to get 15 in the same likelihood as getting a 45. You're going to get a lot more likelihood of getting a 45. That's what makes this example technically flawed. But the concept that I'm looking to portray to someone that's like, well, what the top stack is a 12% chance and the second stack is a 10% chance. And when the top stack fails, everything's wrong and they throw up their hands and they go on tilt and they cause a tantrum. You go, I can't believe the eighth best stack only had a 7% chance. It's like, well, the top stack only had a 12% chance. It's like, we're not talking about like one's a lock and one never happens. Like, that's essentially what I'm trying to convey and show that the differences between the two, even if we did the random number generator with a normally distributed result set, we'd still put it out if we did 10, 20. You may still not be able to tell the difference, right? It'd be a little bit more likely, but still not be able to tell that greatly the difference. And which is the point that I'm trying to put out. But thinking in terms of hearing that and going, oh, what's the flaw to this? Is this technically correct? And thinking through and go, oh yeah, it's that, like, these results shouldn't be random. They shouldn't be linear. So no, this is not a perfect example. But a lot of people just stop and say, oh, that sounds good. They may get to the same point, but it's technically inaccurate. Right? The way that we got there. It's flawed in some way. So anytime you think through something, think through, okay, what are the flaws? You can get to the same point and be like, yeah, you kind of get to the directionally there, but like the methodology is not perfect. The methodology is flawed, even though you're more likely to get there than not. Daniel Hutchings says, humans are really bad at thinking about randomness. It's one of the biggest edges in DFS. Yeah, I mean, to me, this is the biggest edge. Quantifying stuff and saying everything's a probability, and one's 68% and one's 52% and one's 34%. Well, most of the world thinks in terms of one's 98% and one's 2%. Or 100% and 0%. That can never happen. So let's think through. And this is also the reason why defining words matters a lot to me. Because the words mean different things. So don't just blindly go in and go, you assume X. And they're really meaning Y. And then you confuse yourself. So Two Gun asks, where do you think a player can get a bigger edge between DFS and best ball? And he's even giving DFS two options if you think you need a whole season of play or even just 1 week of DFS is greater than best ball in terms of edge. So he gives the choices. Where do you think a player can get a bigger edge? Best ball or DFS? And DFS If you need the qualifier, DFS over the course, and we're talking about an NFL season. So, like, just don't consider the showdowns. Don't consider just 18 main slate, 18 full slates of NFL versus 18 weeks of best ball, right? It's an 18-week season. Where do you think a player could get a bigger edge? And obviously, if you look on the screen, you can see what my answer is. But if you're in the chat, answer what do you think and why? Because I put down DFS even just for 1 week. But it depends on how you calculate edge. What do you mean by edge? So, for instance, do you consider I have a 50% edge on one thing once, or I have a 5% edge 18 times in a row. Which is better? Well, the second one may produce a higher ROI, a higher raw volume of money. So are we talking about expected return? Or are we talking about expected profit? Like, what do you mean by edge? For instance, like if you tell me that there's a 5,000-sided die, right? And if I'll get paid $1 billion to 1 by guessing the number, that obviously has a humongous edge. Or do I want to coin flip for 1.1 to 1? 10 times a day for the next 6 months. The first one obviously has a humongous edge, the biggest edge by far. But the second one has the higher expected return. Because your expected return on the first one, I mean, you're going to get a lot of zeros, a lot of nothings. Then you're going to get $1 billion at some point. Something like that. People look at best ball as like its own thing. Oh, like, oh yeah, well, I'm going to have a portfolio of drafts or whatever. And obviously best ball can be split up into, I'm not talking about like Best Ball Mania, the puppy or whatever that they call it. No, the large field, 2 million to first place. I'm talking about best ball, you had 10-team league. You each put $50 down and you find just leagues, and that's it. There's no larger contest. It's $50 each. And the winner gets $500 or whatever. There's some type of rake there. And grinding those out. But I think what people don't get is that your edge gets more and more diminished. An edge that's available gets more and more diminished. The increase in variance, the higher increase in variance. Variance is the benefit of in DFS for weak players. There wasn't much variance in DFS. I mean, the game wouldn't exist anymore. People would have cleaned people out way too quickly. And we think there's a lot of variance in DFS, but think of the amount of variance there is in one DFS slate. Week 1 NFL, week 2 NFL, week 3 NFL. How much variance is there? Yeah, a lot. Now compound that over 18 weeks. That's how much variance there is in best ball. Especially when it comes to the large field best ball contests. Like, how much edge do you think that you could possibly have in a large field best ball contest versus the Millie Maker on DraftKings? I think you have a way bigger edge in the Millie Maker than you do in best ball. Remember, we talk about where does the money come from, right? DFIC has the correct mindset. This is why you think through stuff. Where does the money come from? Bad lineups, bad players. DFIC asks, what's the percentage of bad lineups in best ball versus DFS? I'm more aware of it in DFS than in best ball. But let's say it's let's break down best ball versus DFS when it comes to like a 10-team league. Right? Just a 10-team, just playing a 10-team league. That's it. Just a 10-man in DFS, right? 50, 30, 20, and that's it. In DFS, like, how many mistakes can you make versus how many mistakes can you make in best ball that cannot be overcome by variance? And that's, to me, that's the key. That cannot be overcome by variance. Now, in DFS, like in a 10-man, there aren't that many players that are going to just like play injured players, play lineups that are 70 points lower projected, like really, really bad lineups. Now you may find out of the 10, you may find one that plays a lineup that you look at and you go, why'd you play a lineup that's 28 points lower projected than anyone else's? Okay, so you found one of them. But like construction, well, this guy didn't stack. He played a quarterback without a wide receiver. That isn't that big of a mistake. And that type of format isn't a mistake. In a 10, it's much more of a mistake in a large field than it is in a 10-man. But it's not that huge of a mistake. Oh, he didn't stack. Oh, he played two running backs from the same team. Oh, and they're both 4,500 or something. Is that, how big of a mistake is that in DFS? So how big are the mistakes in DFS in comparison to best ball that can be made? A lot of times it's projection wise. And in DFS, I mean, take a look at the Millie Maker. Dude, take a look at the bottom 20% of lineups in the Millie Maker. Compare them to just a reasonable set of projections. Aggregate, whatever, anywhere. Plate IQ whatever. Our Gridiron IQ projections. The Blitz projects, anything. And then just download all. I mean, it'll take you forever. Just in Excel, just to load all the lines. But take a look at the bottom 20%. You'll see, you're playing lineups that have some mean projection of like 107, 113, right? Some of your chalky ones will be 121, right? Like that. And then you'll see at the bottom, they'll be like 78s, 82s, right? 85, 64. I mean, you will see that down there. You'll see tons of that. You also see plenty of like, I played the best play lineups, and you'll see like 1v1s of like 5% of the field is playing like a 1v1 off of like the top plays from the whatever, the highest owned possible lineup. They're ceding so much first place top 10 equity by doing so. That represents like, in the Millie Maker, that could represent like 35% of the field. I've seen it like week 1 or so, 40% of the field. It's the softest contest in all of DFS, other than the fact that most of the equity is in first place and it's hard to realize it. Then we take a look at best ball. It's like, what are the mistakes that people make in best ball? Like, how big of the mistakes can there be? Like, if a random Joe just picked based on the site's ADP, which may not be the most efficient, right? The whole point is to exploit that. But let's say they just chose at ADP based on the site. How big of an edge do you have over that person? Very similar to like golf. If you play a 50K lineup, what's the difference? What's the big mistake of playing a 50K lineup in PGA? Unless there's like, even if like, a 10K guy is priced at 6K. Like, there aren't that, like, you're not going to find many golf lineups that'll leave 3K on the table. Like, most of the bad players are just, if they spend 50K, they're fine. Basketball, you get all this arbitrage opportunity because of injuries. That spending $50K, you're maybe $5,000 behind because other people are playing guys that project so well, it's like they're playing a $55,000 lineup. So in best ball, like what are the mistakes? Let's say in the first round, I took the 4th wide receiver from some team with the 101. I took Randall Cobb. And then I went by ADP the rest of the way. You would think it's like, oh, this person's dead. Are they? How dead really are they? If taking Randall Cobb with the first pick of the entire draft, and then you did everything else just with the top-rated play, right? Now that's a big mistake, right? Taking first-round equity with Randall Cobb or something. Nico Collins, he may actually have some value. I don't know, something like that. Like how big of an edge do you have in that draft? If it was only a 10-team league, how big of an edge do you have over that person? In a 10-team league, I think it's more so than in a large field. Well, you're part of this league, but you also, you're competing against 100,000 other people. Like, oh, well, I was in a draft with someone that drafted Randall Cobb with the 101. Boy, there's a lot of edge in best ball. But is there? Let's say you get 2 or 3 of those people, right? There's 20% of the field, 30% of the field. We'll even get up to the example with DFS. Let's say we get up to 40% of the field are drafting. They're drafting 3 quarterbacks in the first 8 rounds or something. Something that you would look at and go, this is a quite obvious mistake. They don't draft a wide receiver until round 12. They have 6 tight ends for no reason, right? You take a look at those lineups and you go, oh, boy, I have a lot of edge. But how much variance is there in best ball? Well, it's just like DFS variance. It's compounded over 18 weeks. 18 weeks of variance on top of each other. So, yeah, the guy that drafted Randall Cobb 101, he still has a chance to win your league. Now, if he continues to make Randall Cobb with the 101 and then, the backup quarterback for whatever, then it's like, okay, this guy's throwing, this guy's colluding, if anything. You're not going to find people that are that bad. But if you take a look, it's this person took someone that most people are taking in the 10th round. He took him in the 4th round. This person took this quarterback, but failed to take any of his receivers. This guy took the handcuff, took 3 running backs from one team. Like if you go to you go to Spike Week with Eric Bimefor. I mean, he talks about this a lot. That it's like this is a median mistake. But it's not a be all end all of this. You do not do this and you do that. There are instances where these outcomes do like taking 3 running backs from the same team. Well, one guy rushes for 200 yards, gets injured, and the next guy rushes for 200 yards and gets injured, and the third, like there's a world where that happens over the course of an 18-week season. And that's how much variance there is in best ball. So how big of a mistake if 40% of the field are making mistakes of even that nature, how far behind can they be? Versus I got all my best ball stuff, I got all my projections, I got all my constructions and simulations and everything like that. Then we see in the NFL, there's going to be like 47 injuries. There's going to be, no matter if they're injury prone or not, like, the guy that you selected in the 2nd round in 38% of your lineups is now out in week 2 for the rest of the season. And it turns out in some instances that Randall Cobb becomes the number 1 receiver for the Jets or something because Aaron Rodgers is there, and it's like, I need Randall Cobb. And next thing you know, Randall Cobb is having a career resurgence. I mean, that's a very small percentage of the time. But you understand what I'm saying. That someone that took some weird guy in the 10th round or reached on something, gets paid off. And there's a lot of those entries there. How much far ahead can you be in those large field contests? 10-team league is a different story. You tell me there's 3 or 4 people in there that are drafting crazy? Yeah, and if you want to grind, if you could bum hunt best ball leagues, I think the edge could be worth it. But remember, you're only going to have the ability to realize it once. Best ball is just one slate, one long slate. DFS, we've even taken out. Like, if you want to say DFS, but over a season, I think that would be the obvious answer. But even just 1 week, I think you have a higher edge. You have the higher edges available in the DraftKings Millie Maker, and obviously in other contests as well. There's more of an edge there than there is in best ball. Because the fact that you're only going by one slate in NFL actually is to your benefit. There's probably less variance because it doesn't compound over 18 weeks. You may say, like, oh, in 1 week of DFS, there's a lot of variance. Less than in an entire season of best ball. But in best ball, how big of the mistakes can you make? I think in DFS, you could actually make bigger mistakes that cannot be overcome with variance. Well, let's say you draft you're taking, the 5th wide receiver for this team, the 3rd tight end for that team, the poorly projected running back. Like, it's like, dude, you need multiple things to, like, happen to make up, like, the amount of air in 1 week. You need to make sure that the 5th wide receiver, who's only gotten 3 snaps in the past 2 games, he needs to score a touchdown or 2 in his 3 snaps. And you need to hit the right defense. And you need the 1% on running back for some odd reason to get 2 touchdowns. You need in 1 week. Like, you build lineups like that, you're dead. You're dead. Best ball, if you're off on ADP by 2 rounds on average, how far behind really are you? I mean, you're behind. If you simulate it out, you would be behind. But can it be overcome with variance? Absolutely. Over 18 weeks? Over 1 week, no. But over 18 weeks? Dude, take a look at the finalists or whatever. Take a look at the playoffs last year on, like, Underdog. You found whack-ass teams. There were people in the week 18 that had lineups, that had rosters that were like, Jesus Christ, how did anyone draft this? How was it overcome? Through variance. So when there's so much variance in best ball, how big, you could think you have a big edge, but do you really? For one slate, right? Because remember, if you compare slate to one DFS slate, one best ball season is a slate. How much variance is there? There's more variance in best ball than there is in DFS. And when there's more variance, it actually benefits the bad players more so than the good players. Variance is not your skillful players don't like variance. We want people to make mistakes that can't be overcome with variance and have less variance in the sport. So yes, I agree with 2 gun degrees. I mean, essentially, you could tell the fact that he's just split out DFS that was the answer. Because if he just did best ball and DFS, people would say, like, well, do you mean just for 1 week or just for the whole season? And people are like, oh, for a whole season. Like, you figured easily. And this is not just like me saying, oh, you should never play best ball or anything like that. No, go ahead. Right? Even like wakey. Best ball is way softer, but the variance is just way more. Way more injuries over a full season and just swing your return. For example, the Bills' DB injury changed millions of dollars by having that game canceled. And then obviously, like in DFS, like if you're like, okay, I'm going to put $1,000. If you had to choose, I'm going to put, $1,800 in best ball or $100 a week in DFS. I mean, you'd make more money. Let's say you have a 20% return in best ball, right? 20% edge of $1,800, or let's say 2,000, right? Because there's also the Thanksgiving slate and everything like that. So let's say 20 slates of DFS at 5%, or 20% edge for 2,000 for one best ball. So that's $400. But imagine putting in the 2,000 and getting 5% edge, right? $100. Now you have 2,100, 5% edge, $105, 5% edge, 5% edge, over and over and over and over and over again. You'd make more money. You'd have a higher overall return, and your variance will be lower. So yeah, I thought, but it's a thought. How do you think through this? Because you could say, oh, best ball I could have a 30% edge in best ball versus a 5 to 10% edge in DFS. And if you're using that as the term of edge, you'd be like, okay, well, the answer is best ball because it's softer. It's like, yeah, but once you factor in that you can play DFS every day, every week, over and over again, and even if you didn't, like once you factor in variance in best ball is way higher than in DFS. Like that kind of wipes out, your distribution of outcomes for the returns probably be much more consistent in DFS. So yeah, so talking through problems, thinking through things, right? It's a thought process show. Give me those thummy thumbs. Thummy thumbs on your way out the door. I don't know. Do we have an afternoon baseball slate tomorrow? Maybe we do. I don't know. I think we just have the DFS pregame show. If there is any early slate tomorrow, maybe we'll build some lineups for that tomorrow. If you got any questions, obviously send them in. questions@theoryofdfs.com. Theoryofdfs.com is also where you get the Theory of Daily Fantasy Sports. You want more of this type of thought process stuff? That's the whole point of the first Fundamentals Masterclass. 15 hours. How to think like a professional DFS player. The more and more you think in these terms, then you could solve everything. You can go, well, what does this look like? What are bad players doing here? How much of an edge can I have there? Right? How much does gut correlation benefit me? How much does this benefit this versus that? Like, to walk through these types of things instead of just like thinking there's a correct answer. And a lot of times there's no definitive 100% right, 0% wrong type of answer. So go there, theoryofdfs.com. Also pick up the Advanced Players Guide with the custom Excel tools, how to apply profitable DFS strategies for advanced players. Theoryofdfs.com. I'll see you guys tomorrow answering your DFS strategy questions, like I always do here, Monday through Friday, 11 o'clock Eastern, on the DFS pregame show on RotoGrinders.com.